千葉シクロクロス2024オープニングレースです。現在リート4スタート1分前となりました。
Alright, welcome everyone. Today I've got footage from Cyclocross Chiba. It's category ME4, which is the easiest category, and we were split into two groups, Group A and Group B. I think there were around 55 people on the start list for Group A, but it was cold and rainy today, so only looks like 40 people started. I'm still first in the season rankings, so I got first call up and got to pick my spot in the first row. I didn't really have any strategy for today. Figured I'd just start out reasonably strong in the front group and then see how things develop through the race. There's a short climb here just off the starting line. I figured might as well ride it hard and see how things go. For tire choice today, I kept my mixed terrain tire on in the back like usual, and in the front I swapped over to a wheel that I had a wet terrain tire on. That's supposed to give a little better traction on wet surfaces and also wider knobs that allow mud to clear a bit better. I started with about 30 psi before the warm-up, and then ended up dropping it down a little bit. Probably ended up around 28 or so. I didn't have too much problem with slipping today, but the wet conditions just made me think a bit more about how I'd approach the turns. So as much as possible, I would try to take a wide approach to turns where I could keep as much traction as possible. So up here coming up, there's an example where I start off to the right, much wider than the people in front of me, and then come back through and avoid a tight turn. I didn't pass him there, but I set myself up to be in a position where I could pass if maybe later in the race I was taking that type of line. It would help me pick up a spot or two. Then you can see the bottleneck there, just probably 5-10 spots behind me, which is the real benefit of getting out into the front group. You don't have to waste time getting stuck behind a mass of people. On some of the tighter turns, like this one coming up, I would just unclip my foot and sort of hang it out for a little bit of extra confidence. I felt like I was cornering a little faster than the guy in front of me, so I was just looking for a place where I could sneak by him. But these were all too tight here. I got a little better angle and got inside of him right here and tried to pass, but just not enough room before this left-hand turn. So the unique thing about this course was a beach section coming up. It's really hard to do any sort of cornering on sand. So there's a lead-in section here coming up where I tried to take it as wide as possible to cut off the tight left-hand turn there, and it worked pretty well for me, but just so hard to push through there. Then this guy on the left just cut me off running through, but look how much faster he is just running. But here I tried to ride through as much as I could, but just so much energy. I just don't think it's worth it to be powering through at 500 watts when, running seems like it's just as fast. But if you get a good groove, if you get some more packed sand, you can ride it much faster than you can run. So it's always a tough choice. So here I had to just pick up the bike and carry it. Could have remounted here like this guy in front. I guess I did. But in just a little bit up here, there was this ditch, which was... I found it pretty impossible to ride up. This guy to hop off. Then again, with this left-hand turn coming up, just didn't think I could stand the bike. So a little grassy area right here. Was able to jump back on, clip in, and push through this bit of sand here. But you can see other people just running through it. My heart rate's not that high, but I just don't run that much lately, so my legs are not used to the motion of slogging through the sand.
2パックという形できそうです。先頭行くのは土屋理香。
So this brings us to just about the end of the lap. There's another little climb here. Just sort of the last chance to pass before the finish line. Coming up after this pavement, there's a left-hand turn, and then a pretty fast downhill where it's not really much room to get by someone. And then a U-turn before the finish line. Very short straightaway before the finish right here. So there aren't a lot of really obvious places to pass people and make up ground on this course. There's this incline here, which is definitely possible, and actually there's someone coming up on my left here to make a pass. But it just takes so much effort to get by someone going uphill. And then the downhill sections, it's a bit fast and slippery, so don't have a lot of confidence passing people there. I was hoping that I might be able to make up some ground by taking better corners than other people, but it's not something you can plan on. It's more opportunistic. So I find that a course like this has a much bigger anaerobic impact instead of an aerobic impact. The last race I did was more aerobic, where there were longer stretches where I had a faster cadence and a fairly high power, and then my heart rate would just creep up and up throughout the race. But on this course, there were much shorter, more intense sections, I guess. There was the climb after the finish line and the beach section, and all of that is a much lower cadence and more anaerobic power output. So I feel the fatigue in my legs, but my heart rate doesn't climb up as high. My heart rate's only 165 beats per minute here. At a similar point in the last race, I think it was more like 175. So again, I'm trying to take a wide angle here. See what these guys do. Yeah, he fell over. It's too tight. He couldn't, the other one, number 18, couldn't keep his speed. So I was still on the bike. Although he's going just as fast and doesn't look like he's running very hard. I was still on. And I think that's it right there where I had to hop off. Decided to put the bike on my shoulder. This time I didn't bother remounting until after that trough up there. Looks like everyone else in front of me had the same idea. Guy right next to me, he managed. Looks like he's putting in a lot of effort though. See my front tire there just caked in sand. But since it's sand and not dirt, you see it just fly right off once I get onto the pavement. I guess the wider spacing on the tires helps a little bit, but the sand doesn't really stay lodged in there anyway.
切符をお渡しできなかった、メンズエリート3、ゼッケン18番、久保田選手、そしてマスターズ40、ゼッケン107番の小野選手、実は9秒で過ごしたので、不刺激な実績をしてください。メンズエリート3、ゼッケン18番、久保田選手。 手、マスターズ40の107番、小野選手、こちらチップしますので、受付にお越しください。そして3番でパックは3点になりました。ゼッケン10番、拡大よりゼッケン50番、高橋仁、そしてゼッケン19番、上野亮さん。
One thing I didn't really like about this course was how short the straightaway was before the finish line here. It's, I don't know, not more than 20 meters or so. It'd be nice if they pushed it back to maybe right around here. And it's not that CX races really end in sprint finishes that often, but it's just sort of nice to have the chance to, if you find yourself in that position at the end. I guess that's a little foreshadowing for today's finish. I do like, though, how each course really has its own characteristics and its own profile and features. I think the only really common theme is that all of the courses are mostly off-road, and they have a lot of turns and sharp accelerations. But some are very flat, others are hillier, maybe punchier climbs like this course, or another one back in December that had a lot more sustained climbs. And then there's a mix of terrains like the short grass you see here, or backed dirt, longer grass, loose dirt, gravel, or even sand on the beach like in this course. And then of course the weather adds another layer. Riding this course in the dry versus in the rain is probably going to be a lot different. And if you don't choose the right tires for the right conditions, you might slip and fall several times through the race, or just not have confidence taking corners at speed. So when you put it all together, there's a lot of things to think about. Fitness matters a lot, of course, but what type of fitness you work on is going to impact how well you do. You might have great sustained power, but if you can't repeat efforts, you're not going to do well on a course like this. And then even if your fitness is great, if you don't have good handling skills, you're going to lose a lot of time on your cornering. It was hard to know exactly what my positioning was at this point. The beach is so wide and spread out, it's hard to tell who's, passing who. The under 15 category started a minute behind us too, so some of them ended up catching up to us, and it's hard to tell them apart sometimes unless you were looking carefully at their number tags. They were wearing blue number tags, and ME4 was wearing green. So coming up on my third attempt at the beach, I'm going to go off to the far right here for a wide turn through here. I swear that go, 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 go guy is at every race I'm at. Yeah, it looks like I cut that corner a little too tight. So I decided just to run through this section. But you see up on the left, someone's going to overtake me here. Definitely much faster if you have a good line to ride. It's a hard effort, but maybe worth it. just couldn't get clipped in here. My feet were on the pedals, but just not firmly in place. So all the way up to this incline here. And I still wasn't clipped in. And to shimmy up a little bit. And then was able to clip in here. But I really lost a lot of ground.
ゼッケンでは山木敦ファストレーンレーシング、この辺りはオーダー変わらずという形。さあそしてアンダー10のトップの横田総一郎がこの位置まで上げてきました。残り1周、残り1周。さらにゼッケン13番佐藤勝利、リードつくば、シクロクロス千葉、残り1周から上がっています。さあさらにゼッケン47番鈴木優太。
So we're finishing up the third lap here, and I still felt okay. I thought I'd be able to put in a few more good efforts in the more difficult sections. But not sure how people were doing in front of me and if I'd be able to make up some positions or not. Did feel like I was making up some ground, so that was encouraging. It's interesting, the guy in front of me here is on a mountain bike. And I can understand why they allow that. I think they want to lower the barrier to entry and let anyone try out the sport if they want, not have to buy a new bike. But it seems like there are some areas where it does give an advantage. I think one of those is on the beach. I think the wider tire makes it a bit easier to ride over sand and keep balance. In the higher categories, 33 millimeters is the limit on tire width. So most people in the lower categories stick to that too, I think. Looks like I did make up some ground in those curves back there. The beach area is so unpredictable. I was hoping that maybe I could pick up a couple of spots here. It's really amazing how much the tires slip around in the sand. I tried riding down by the water in the ride, but didn't seem to do much better for me. And some people seem to do well there. But this time I found some good lines right through the middle, right up until the few people in front of me stopped. And at that point I decided I could just put in a good run, get ahead of those guys, and maybe the next two as well. You can see the guy on the mountain bike is just having an easier time at it. He's able to make a tighter turn right there than most people on a CX bike are able to. Managed to remount and clip in pretty smoothly there. And not much time left before the finish. So if I want to catch the guy in front of me, I have to try to make up a little ground here and then maybe use that last little incline to pass. I think this is a lapped rider here. Now to the wooded section here, we turn into a little bit of an incline that's really the last chance to try to pass before the finish line. And I was able to mostly catch up here, which is not soon enough to pass him before this turn coming up. So I ended up stuck just behind him, coming down into this U-turn. I figured coming in on the inside would be best, and maybe I could sprint coming out of the turn, but there just wasn't enough room. So I couldn't catch him. If the finish line was pushed out another 20 or 30 meters, maybe I would have had enough to sprint and pass him. Maybe not, maybe he would have beaten me by more, but it would have been fun to just have the chance. So I couldn't quite crack the top 10. 11th place is fine. It was a fun course to try. Had to try out a completely new skill, riding and running through the sand. And for once I actually finished with my fastest lap. It seems like in most races I start out fast on the first lap, but then gradually get slower and slower and just lose more and more positions. Anyway, kudos to everyone who braved the weather today, and I hope to see you at the next one.